Hello and welcome into another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. We have a packed show for you today. In our What's Poppin' edition, we're going to get you caught up on the latest and greatest in movie and TV news, including hot off the presses, something that smells a little rotten over at Rotten Tomatoes, Kirk. Plus, an update on the WGA and SAG-AFTRA ongoing strike. We are now almost 4 months into it. So we got to get caught up, get the lay of the land, get everybody up to date on what's happening there and what's going to happen next. And then we'll do a little crosstalk at the end to get caught up on anything else that happened, any new trailers that caught our eyes, anything from the Venice Film Festival that caught our eyes. There's lots going on. We're excited you're here. Let's get into it.
Is Popcorn for Breakfast, presented by St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings. Now, here are your hosts, Cam and Kirk.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. We are absolutely thrilled that you're here. We are thrilled to be here with you after another week and a half of scheduling weirdness. This happens from time to time because we are part-time podcasters, if that. It's a side hustle. It's not our full-time gig yet. Also, in an insanely weird turn of events, both of our wives are ultra pregnant right now. I think is the best way to describe that. So Kirk and I are both expecting our third child, both expecting children in the very, very near future.
That's right. We will be each a family of 5.
That's right.
In a very short period of time. I think
Don't
in
remind me.
Maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks for you.
Yep.
3 to 4 weeks for me. It's insane.
Going from man-to-man defense to a zone,
right.
to a zone feel. And I haven't played zone in a while. I'm a little nervous about that, but it'll be good. It'll be good. The countdown is on. It's very close. And so yeah, thank you for bearing with us as we kind of work through the scheduling.
Yeah, you might even see the babies here because there's no way that they'll be able to sleep.
There's no rest for the wicked, and sometimes, like we do these podcasts late at night, and newborns are awake.
That's right.
And even if they're not, they'd be great podcast companion.
Oh yeah, we'll be nice and warm, and they'll just be sitting here. We'll put their little pacifier in.
Yeah, easy.
We'll review the latest episode of Coco Melon. It'll be great.
It'll be fantastic. So probably more scheduling mayhem to come, but we're glad to be here tonight because, and I say tonight, it's tonight when we're recording, but whenever you're listening to it, we're glad to be here with you to talk about everything that's going on because the industry is lost its mind.
Yes.
Is that safe to say? It's such a weird time. And this is, we've gone through COVID and that, that was weird. But here we are now. We've got writers and actors striking for months. I mean, the actors are newer onto the scene, but I mean, I view it all as like one big thing. And I think you just said before we came on air, it's been almost 4 months.
Yeah, we're at 113 days since the strike began. That's just the writer's strike. I think the actors are right behind them at 70-something plus days.
Yeah.
But specifically, the writer's strike, which kicked off all of this fight for the rights and the unionization that was already in place, but to really make things fairer, to close the gap, to spread the wealth, the massive wealth of the studios and into the hands of the people that create your favorite stories.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that we're this far gone as we just did this 10 years ago and now we're here again.
I know. And these things will happen because as the industry changes, there become things that were not regulated.
Yes.
That need to be regulated. And so it's kind of a natural byproduct of technology and the advancement of the industry and things like that. But it sucks. It sucks that we're here and that we're dealing with it. And it sucks how little has really happened. So we'll get into the strikes because the question I get most often, you're probably in the same boat. People know that I'm a movie guy and they're like, what? Can you talk to me about these strikes? what is happening? So I've given the spiel many times. And the reality is really not very much has happened. But there have been a few updates over the last couple of weeks that we'll get into in a bit. But first, Kirk, hot off the presses today, and this is one of those that just falls in your lap, and you do the, oh boy.
Ooh, do that closer to the mic.
Yeah, do a little swishing of the hands together.
Do you moisturize? That was a very nice. Mine sounds
I know,
sandpaper if I do it.
I noticed that. I was like, oh, my skin is feeling it's feeling good.
For comparison, here's mine.
Kirk is like rubbing sheet metal together. Hot off the presses today, a piece from Vulture, which of all places I love. It always comes from one of these, right? Rotten Tomatoes, and the piece is called "The Decomposition of Rotten Tomatoes."
Yeah,
and in a shocking turn of events, that's not even slightly shocking, at least in my opinion. People have been gaming the system with Rotten Tomatoes. They've been gaming it. Critics have been receiving payouts for good treatment, and even it goes as far as to not just being the individual critics themselves, but also Rotten Tomatoes. There are PR companies out there, specifically the one that's named in this article, which is Bunker 15, and they claim they can influence how Rotten Tomatoes, if it labels a particular review rotten or fresh, not like a single individual review. And I say that it's not surprising at all, because here's the thing. We have talked about at length on this podcast, Kirk, that Rotten Tomatoes is responsible for an enormous amount of money in the film industry.
Yes.
Their thumbs up, thumbs down, Gladiator style is life or death for your movie.
Yeah.
Facts. And we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so for some movies, that's hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that a simple couple percentage points one way or the other can dictate. And so the reason it's not surprising is, show me a system where there's a ton of money involved and a bunch of individual contributors, and I'll show you people who are willing to take payouts.
Yes, every
Facts.
time. Every single time. I also loved, I didn't know this, in this article they lay out that Rotten Tomatoes was originally created to categorize and rate Jackie Chan movies by the creators.
Dude, yes.
Which I love.
Let's go back. Take me back. That's pure.
Delete every other review that's ever been aggregated by the populace, and I just want to see the Jackie Chan reviews.
Yeah, I remember my first experience with Rotten Tomatoes, where my cousin was like, this was like dawn of the internet type stuff. At least felt like for me. It was like, I don't know, it must have been like 2003, 2004, my cousin being like, look at this website. Like, they aggregate reviews and they'll tell you like Batman Returns is actually a good movie. And I'm like, well, that's subjective, but they're gathering people's opinions. I thought that's so cool. Fast forward to now, where Rotten Tomatoes literally decides how a movie will perform in the box office.
Yes.
That's not hyperbole. It's not an exaggeration. That is the reality. People go on that site when a movie comes out, or even before a movie comes out, when the embargo is lifted, they go, am I seeing this movie this weekend? Oh, it got bombed. I'm out.
Right.
It's that easy.
They're not going to waste their money. In a time and in history where there's not enough money in our pockets as citizens, consumers, you're going to make sure that what you're seeing, the entertainment that you've chosen, is going to be a good time.
Yeah.
So you see that score, you're like, absolutely not. I remember going to Jurassic World 2, and Incredibles 2 was also coming out the same weekend. I didn't get a chance to check the Rotten Tomatoes score, but I asked the people, the workers, I said, which one? They said, don't you dare go into this theater and see Jurassic World 2. Here's your ticket for Incredibles. Enjoy your time. It's absolutely very necessary that these stories be created with thought and not just AI, and that these stories are critically reviewed in a different way, without corruption, and thoughtfully so, distributing to all the consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sucks to see, because like now people think that, people are going to think that every single Rotten Tomatoes critic who is, part of a small publication or an independent publication is bought and sold by somebody. And in a way, like in the inner circles of like film Twitter and things like that, that's long been assumed that there's, PR happening here. But there's a lot of really good, honest people who do this. Somebody that we know very well in the industry, Lynn Vinhouse, who does a fantastic job. She's the best, is a Rotten Tomatoes contributor.
Yes.
And she worked extremely hard to get that distinction and has a ton of integrity. And so now that's sullies the name of people like her. And that sucks to see. And I think that it's just like, it's the human condition, man. Like, Rotten Tomatoes on paper is a fantastic idea.
Yes.
Aggregating scores and just saying like, hey, in general, people like this movie or people don't, or critics like this movie or critics don't. That's great. But like everything as humans, we take it too far. And then all of a sudden, Rotten Tomatoes becomes like the judge, jury, executioner on movies. And because it has so much power, of course it's going to get tainted. Anywhere that there's that much money, it's going to be rigged. Like, I'm a huge professional sports fan, and I have to like throw my tinfoil cap away, because if I let my mind go far enough, I'm like, there's just too much money here for it not to be rigged. Between like the sports betting and all of the stuff, like there's just
Patriots won again.
Yeah, exactly. There's too much money involved for this not to be some level of rigged. And this is very much the same thing. Is like, these studios, of course, are going to do whatever they can to ensure a good score. And I think we've seen this to a lesser degree. Like, you see these marketing agencies that work with the big studios to get screeners in front of critics. Like, we've been to some of these showings.
That's right.
And they show you a nice night. It's free movie. They give you, sometimes the concessions are free. There's swag. They're throwing stuff out. They're shaking your hand on the way in. Hey, how's it going? They want to show you a good time.
That's right.
While you're watching the movie. Of course, they say, give your review, and it is what it is. But that can influence people. If you go like it's like anything. You go to the theater and there's a bunch of people laughing and carrying on and being loud and whatever, like that influences how you view the movie. Your viewing experience matters. So if a marketing company comes in or a PR company comes in and they show you a nice time and they give you lots of hospitality, they put some swag in your pocket and you're feeling good, that influences you.
Yeah. Even if the movie is garbage, you're going to give it a better score because you enjoyed the experience.
Right. You might. So there's gray areas going on here, but what it talks about in this article that is absolutely wrong is like PR companies paying individual contributors with an understanding, like mafia style. I'm not saying it's got to be a good review, but like, do the thing.
Hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Exactly. And then at the same time, what makes it even more sinister is this quote right here that talks about, where is it?
Give me a keyword. I'll find it.
Hold on. I lost it.
Bunker 15.
The
PR company.
The part where it says that the Bunker 15 felt like they could get Rotten Tomatoes to change the review. I don't know where that part is, but basically there's a quote in there that's like, we know the people at Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
We know the editors, and if there's a review that's gray enough, we can say, give that one a tomato. And I've seen this, Kirk. Like, I've seen where you go on Rotten Tomatoes, if you go through it. So the way Rotten Tomatoes works, I don't feel like everybody understands this, is that if a movie has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, that means 95 of the reviews that were received were deemed positive by Rotten Tomatoes. It does not mean that the average score of those reviews is 95%. So if a movie, like let's say it's a 5-star scale and 3 stars is considered good. Mm-hmm. It could have 95% 3-star reviews. And so it's a bunch of critics saying, this is a okay, goodish movie. Mm-hmm. But on Rotten Tomatoes, it would be a 95. Now that's not usually how that happens, because usually like it'll kind of tip one way or the other. But there are instances where a movie is just kind of like objectively goodish.
Yes.
And it ends up getting a high score. We see this with animated movies a lot, for sure, because people are like, it's a kid's movie. Like, how bad could it really be? And so they tend to be a little bit more light on it. And so you see animated scores go up, even though the movie's kind of like mediocre. And so that distinction of is this positive or is it rotten is important. And sometimes, like, if the scale is like 4 stars,
yes,
they'll be like 2 stars equals positive. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And you read the review and you're like,
I thought that was positive.
Yeah, like if you dig into it, you can see ones that are like very weird.
Yeah. So like it's like Veruca Salt, the bad egg, but instead it's a tomato, and you take those tomatoes. It's a binary yes or no. You take the tomatoes, you divide those by the total number of reviews, even though you're tossing out the bad tomatoes, and that is where you get the percentage. And with that, it's very vague, because you could be somewhere sitting around maybe you've watched a movie that you would say that's a 50%, but I would watch that movie again for X, Y, and Z, because it's culty to watch. It was endearing but bad. It was a very good bad movie. You know, that's always the gray area. So that's where the algorithm and the setup doesn't work for it, because it's so specific.
Absolutely. Now here's my question for you, Kirk, because on the surface, we're dogging Rotten Tomatoes because there's some shady stuff going on. It's one thing if it's the individual critics. It's another thing when it crosses the line and Rotten Tomatoes is in on it. That's the part that really got me. The individual critics, like, it's the same with like the Oscars for your consideration. Everybody's getting bribed. It's kind of a crooked system, and I think we've all always known that.
Right.
But when it comes to the point of like PR companies influencing Rotten Tomatoes to distinguish, that's where it gets kind of pretty yucky, I think, in general. But I have to ask you this. Obviously, we both use Rotten Tomatoes. We've used it for a long time. If you're a fan of film, even if you're not, you know it and you've used it.
Yep.
No question. Do you think it has had a net negative or net positive effect on film in general?
What a wonderful, thoughtful question.
As a hobby and as an industry.
Oh, gosh. I haven't come across, I will say a net positive, because I haven't come across too many films where I thought, wow, they really missed the mark there. I've certainly come across those where I've said, no, the audience score is correct. Or the critics were too harsh because of how the algorithm is set up. Yeah. So I think it's a net positive, though, ultimately.
See, like more recently, I lean net negative.
Okay.
And here's why. Because I feel like in a lot of instances, it has stolen money from movies that could have gotten those dollars, for better or worse. And you would say like, well, that's just the way it is. That's just how that's how it all shakes out. That's how the cookie crumbles. Like,
sure.
Make a good movie and you won't have to worry about it.
Right.
And that's fair. But the other thing I would say is that Rotten Tomatoes in the film community of like people who love film and like cinephiles, people who watch movies, Rotten Tomatoes has been used as a weapon so much where people go like, well, this movie is good. And it's like, well, to that person, it's not, and I think I see it weaponized a lot where people are like, oh, you like Interstellar? Well, it's like one of Chris Nolan's lowest rated films on Rotten Tomatoes, or it just, some people have such a brash confidence because of it. Gotcha. Because they're like, I know that I'm right, and it's like, well, you're not right. You agree with the consensus, and that's cool. Like if that's your genuine opinion, fantastic. Couldn't be happier for you. But I think a lot of people will cling to that and not form a genuine, honest opinion because they're like, I don't want to be wrong. And there is a wrong answer.
Because it's not like sports where they have a statistic that they accomplished this goal. They threw this many passes.
Yes.
They got this many yards. Right. They got this many baskets. All of those things are very tangible and they happen. But with film, it's all subjective.
It is. And it's highly personal in a lot of instances. Yes. Sure, there are plenty of objective elements of like, that was a poorly edited scene.
Yes.
The sound mixing on that is bad or whatever. There are certainly elements, and some films because of that are objectively poorly made. But a lot of it is personal. A lot of it is subjective. And so my hope with this whole thing is that people start to just form their own opinions.
Yes.
And be like, you know what? The critics say this is great. I disagree. And you know what? Maybe half those critics are bought and sold by a PR company anyway, and maybe it's baloney.
You know what's funny? As we do this podcast, I get so much. You and I like just scrounge. We follow all the different news outlets to get all the information, all the different celebrities, all the talk shows. We get all of the information right away at our fingertips, and then we try to come here and tell our friends, our listeners. And even past that, maybe they miss an episode or whatnot. The people are so in the dark about a lot of this stuff, which is probably for the better, that they don't hear all the nitty gritty, dark, dirty details of Hollywood that we do, that we still try to overcome with. But do we think that with this information, with Rotten Tomatoes, is there a chance for someone else to, maybe this does get bigger notice and gets a bigger net to cast to consumers? Do we see, is there another rating aggregate like Letterboxd? Could they officially rise to the surface and say, this is the scale you follow now?
I love it. I would love for Letterboxd to rise because that's the voice of the people.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, of the people that have seen it and logged it on Letterboxd, here's the score.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the score. And that's what they say. And you have no idea what that's based on. You see ridiculous Letterboxd reviews, and that's kind of why I like it. What you can guarantee, hopefully, is that the vast majority of those are a personal, like a person's actual opinion.
Yes.
On it. And like an actual real person. Because I don't feel like there's a ton of like bots on Letterboxd or anything like that.
Right. They've got something working in the background to fight that, I'm sure.
I tend to look at those a lot in general. After I watch a movie, I'll go to the Letterboxd page when I log it and be like, what's the average score of this? Just to see like where I landed. And I always find it so fascinating.
It is.
So yeah, it's not that I'm like down with Rotten Tomatoes, but you know, in a way, I think there needs to be some change that comes of this. And I think it would be good if some change did come of it. And I hope that people just feel more confident in sharing their own opinion and feeling comfortable with their own opinion in general.
Yeah, or will people run to the IMDb Metacritic score, the cinema score?
Yeah.
Like, what is it going to be? Or will nothing change?
I do feel like IMDb score has, I've seen a lot more people cite it recently.
It's gotten better.
Yeah. Because that's a tough score.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I see something with a 7 on IMDb, I'm like, this slaps, or it's a Zack Snyder movie. That's the other distinct possibility with that. So you gotta watch out for that one.
From 0 to Zack Snyder.
Looking at you, Watchmen. All right, we're gonna talk about the writer strikes next, but before that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor who brought this episode to you. As always, every episode of Popcorn for Breakfast is brought to you by St. Louis area Smoothie Kings. So be sure to stop in and hang out with our friends at Smoothie King. They're the best.
Just knock on the employee door.
Just be like, hey.
I heard from Cam and Kirk that we can hang out with you.
That we can just hang.
I don't have my clean serve license, but I would like to come in.
No, don't actually hang out. Just
okay.
like they, like the 660 Carlisle Avenue here in East Belleville, they have a walk-up window and they have a drive-through window.
Yes.
So make sure there's glass in between you and the people for everyone's safety. But you got to go check it out. Smoothie King is the absolute best, whether you're looking for a treat or you're looking for a meal replacement. I think that's kind of the way to go. Meal replacement smoothie. You can't beat it because it's your meal in a cup. It's the most convenient way. If you're on the go, if you're working, whether you work remotely or you work in an office, there is nothing better than just drinking your lunch. Yes. It's fantastic. And you can build all sorts of nutritious combinations at Smoothie King. My go-to is the Angel Food Slim smoothie. Add kale, add peanut butter. I absolutely love it. Or sometimes I go for the spinach pineapple power meal smoothie. Mm-hmm. You've got to check it out. They've got a whole litany of pumpkin smoothies that are on the way for fall. So I need to get the details on all of that. I saw the ad for it and I was like, well, that's happening. Because, like a few of these days we've already had in September, in the early goings here, have that chill in the air.
They do. Like this
and
evening.
it's like, yes, please. They also have a Snickerdoodle smoothie at
is
Smoothie King that is like very much fall vibes. And unbelievably delicious. I know you're a huge snickerdoodle guy.
It's like drinking a snickerdoodle
It is.
cookie in a cup.
It's actually kind of bizarre, but in all the right ways.
Yes.
You're like, it's kind of like in Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory when they're eating the 7-course meal gum and they're like, I can taste the whole, that's like, it's like, wow, this is like drinking a snickerdoodle. It's insane. But you got to check them out. Whatever your goals are, or if you're just like, I want a yummy, delicious smoothie, that's what's great about them. You can do any number of things. It's smoothies with a purpose. Whether you're trying to get well with some immunity blends or trim down with some slim blends or just enjoy a treat, there's plenty of amazing things you can do. And we've got 2 great locations here on the east side of the Mississippi River at 660 Carlisle Avenue in East Belleville, Illinois, or 3401 Namioki Road in Granite City. Be sure to stop by, start your Smoothie King journey. They're going to get you hooked up. They're going to be unbelievably friendly and kind and get you the best smoothie that you possibly can. If you have a question, everybody has a smoothie recommendation. That's what I love too. Ask them, because you'll find some unbelievable blends that you would have never tried yourself just by asking people. That's the way to go.
They're like mad scientists back there. They have the downtime when they're not serving thousands of customers per day. They're just mixing and concocting with different kind of cups and cylinders.
Oh, they've got it. They've got it figured out.
It's incredible.
You can, if you ask them, you can guarantee that's a well thought out smoothie order. They've seen all the ingredients and they know where the money's at. Mm-hmm. So definitely go to Smoothie King. That's Smoothie King, nurturing passion, nourishing purpose. All right, Kirk, let's talk about these strikes. We're in month 4 now of the strikes. And the most recent update comes from the AMPTP, which is the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. So these are the
AMPT.
These are the guys that are getting all the bad press, the David Zaslavs, the Bob Igers, the people who make $25 million a year and are like being misers to all the little writers and actors and things like that, are not the big name celebrities, but are the people who are like working the day jobs like you and me. They're the ones that came to the WGA with a proposal, a counter proposal, if you will, because how this all started, you have to remember, is that the WGA basically almost unanimously voted to authorize a strike.
Right.
And some of their demands were relating to residuals and how the new streaming model doesn't allow for residuals in the same way that they were getting them before with the network and cable television model. So people who have streaming shows weren't getting payments for massively popular streaming shows. They also had concerns about related to residuals, the amount of viewership that these shows were getting. It still is very like hush hush. Every streaming platform has its own metrics. They share what they want to share. There's no regulation, whatever. They've also got concerns about writers' rooms. A lot of these studios were trying to trim down writers' rooms, make it so that even if it's a big giant show like that's on every week, like a CSI, SVU, they wanted to trim down the number of writers that were in the room, which obviously limited opportunities for people, even though the show had a huge cast and a ton of episodes and things like that. And then obviously the big one that everyone's heard about, AI.
I don't know how to do it.
You do YMCA. I was going to say A and I in the YMCA are like the same thing. I think.
I did this. Like my torso is the I base.
Yep. That's right. So the counteroffer that the AMPTP offered WGA was essentially that they addressed 3 of the concerns. Okay. One was they would bump residuals a little bit. So for example, on streaming video on demand residuals, if it was something that was a 3 exhibition year program, it would go from a residual of $72,000 to $87,000. So that's the kind of change that I'm talking about. There's a lot of details into what that actually means. If you want to read about it, you can. But basically what I'm trying to show you is that it's a $15,000 bump in residuals. So a little bit of give, not a ton. The data sharing, they agreed that they would share more data on a more regular basis that would be a little bit more standardized in terms of how much something is being watched. And then they also said that they would not allow the new proposal bans written material produced by generative AI to be considered literary material or source material, such that a writer wouldn't get credited as not the writer if they helped on a script that AI also partially wrote.
Right. If you edit or revise an AI-generated script, you are now the credited writer.
You're the writer. Right. So that was the other thing. WGA didn't love it. They were like, so the counter proposal got leaked, and then AMPTP came out and said, here's the counter proposal. We didn't want to share this yet because we're still talking it over with the WGA, but here it is. And then the WGA issued a statement being like, this offer sucks. This is baloney. So that's where we're at. And there's really, and that, again, that the last time they talked about that was August 11th. They've had meetings since then, but that's still the proposal that's on the table.
I love that the AMPTP are the ones who leaked that. They were called out. They said, oh yeah, it had to come from us. Right. Because they want the people who are most affected by it, who are the live paycheck to paycheck, who do, they're not the millionaires that you see. They're not Tina Fey writing for a television show, right? Yeah. They're not producer, writer, and actor in the show. The people who are normal, they wanted them to see it. But even them seeing it, still part of the union, is not a significant enough counteroffer for it to make it worth it. So they were like, look at what the people at the top of your organization did. And I'm sure there's been no pushback from that. None whatsoever. Just like absolute quiet, like, yeah, no, that's terrible. It's a terrible deal.
It's a bad deal.
Give me more. When we hear about Jesse Pinkman not getting his residuals for Breaking Bad from
Aaron
Netflix.
Paul, yes.
He's got nothing. I mean, that's a big issue.
When you know that that's like one of the most watched shows ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't we, as the people who pay for Netflix, kind of get an idea of what that data is? That'd be kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
With these streaming services, I think that's the part that I think is one of the reasons that this is dragging out so long, is that the studios don't want the Wild West to go away. They like the Wild West. They like it there. They can shoot their guns and punch women and do all the things that you can do in the Wild West, you know, because they can tell their shareholders, we've got X number of subscribers and we've had this many millions of hours streamed, but there's no industry standard on that stuff. And like Nielsen, one of these companies that collects data on these sorts of things, like Disney Plus doesn't share data with Nielsen.
Right.
So there's a lot of there's no industry standard, and they like it that way because, in my opinion, they can manipulate it for their shareholders.
Right.
And lie to their shareholders and say, look how great we're doing.
And in fact, it would actually benefit them if they would actually share that data, because you could have accidental clicks.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, obviously. Abandonment rate. Did they abandon the show or TV within 10, 15, half an hour, 75% through, whatever? Did they watch the whole thing? Those are points where you could say, great, if they abandoned it, you get less money for that particular episode.
Yep.
Right? So it actually would work in their favor,
you would think,
if they would share this data versus just vaulting it and just keeping it away from everyone.
But I think my tinfoil hat theory on all of this is that all of these streaming services, and this isn't like new news, they're money pits. Mm-hmm. They don't make money.
Yeah.
They burn money at an alarming rate. Mm-hmm. And I think that because they are emerging technologies and there's maybe not as much like GAAP accounting principles, regulations on these types of things, they are able to bucket how much money is being burned by these things and allocate it to other things so that it looks like they are profitable when they're not. And we know this because we know that the guys who are struggling hard. Mm-hmm. Like Peacock losing $1 billion.
Right.
Paramount Plus bleeding money. And so I think it's very much the same for like a Disney Plus. Like, I don't think Disney Plus generates profit.
Right.
I think it generates revenue, and I think that it bleeds money hard. And I think that is part of the reason they're willing to let this drag out, because they don't want the lid to be blown off their op. They want to continue to operate in the shadows. The other thing is, I think everybody saw the report that David Zaslav, who's the CEO of Warner, said we're going to lose $300 to $500 million due to this strike. Now, why would a CEO be okay with that? Like, when you have to report earnings, you're a publicly traded company. Mm-hmm. I think because he's got something to blame it on.
Yeah.
And they were going to lose that money anyway. You know, and I think like with Max, they're just hemorrhaging cash. And if he can point to it and be like, well, you know, they're striking, dude.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Like, it is like, I think they like this. I think they like the cover because, and that sucks because it means that the WGA and SAG-AFTRA have very little leverage.
Right.
And those are real people who are not working.
Right.
You know, they have no money.
Right.
They have no money coming in. And that's really tough for those people. A lot of those people were already paycheck to paycheck and now they're like waiting tables. You know what I mean?
And
like
then what does that do to the economies that they're based in? You know, mostly LA,
brutal,
right? And
and
New York,
LA and New York,
right? Like there's going to be some interesting economic financial reports that come out of this as well.
Absolutely. I mean, this is real. So yeah, I think this is tough, man. Mm-hmm. I'm having trouble. You know, usually you can look at these situations and say, okay, who has the leverage here? And who will ultimately give out. And it's bleak, man, because I feel like the studios have all the leverage.
Yeah.
And they got time. And they feel like they have to win this AI battle.
They do.
Because they feel like this is happening and we cannot give on AI.
I gotta find her handle. There's a girl on TikTok, a creator on TikTok, where she actually is doing. She's feeding a basic story plot into AI every day and says, "Write me a script," and it's terrible every time.
Yeah,
like generic stuff, like meet cutes at a cafe and running into each other while running in a park. They're just incredibly terrible.
Yeah,
including things like long stare, long stare, long stare. I will find her because she's fantastic. But the AI thing has to be shut down. It just can't because the artist integrity is completely squashed, destroyed from it. I mean, I would say if you would want to use it like a thesaurus, honestly. Like it cannot be the base product of a script. Any writer can decide if they want to use AI for their script themselves. But it cannot be, hey, we're a studio, we don't want to pay a writer, let's just put this out there, which is not copyrighted, which then completely can just be stolen, revised, and pushed out better from a real writer. So I don't see how that, again, it doesn't benefit the studio. It actually hurts the studio.
Absolutely. And I think part of the responsibility with AI that will be the case, and I'm not just talking about film, but in general, we as consumers, because that's all we are to these people,
right?
You know, in general, that's just in, you know, and I'm not anti-capitalist or anything like that. Anybody who knows me will tell you that. In a capitalist society, we are consumers to all these corporations. And as consumers, we have to say no to AI.
Right.
We have to. Like, we have to say no to it. I see a lot of products like I've been watching the US Open and they have these IBM Watson X commercials that come on about, oh, look what AI can do to your business. No. Like, we as a consumer, we have to say no to AI. We have to say, I want something that's produced by a person.
Yes.
You know, the same way that a lot of people are like, I want something that's made in America. We need to say, I want something that is written by a human, acted in by a human. I don't want any AI extras. I don't want any of that. We have to choose. We have to vote with our dollars against it. We have to fight it because it's an existential threat to us all. And there's so much greed that people won't realize that, like, if people aren't working, there are no consumers because none of us have dollars.
Right.
And instead, they'll just destroy all these industries with AI first before they figure that out. So we have to, as consumers, say, no, we're resisting AI. We don't want it. And we gotta link arms and fight it, man.
Right. And it's exploded. Like when ChatGPT
man,
debuted. Now there's like
Skynet.
Skynet indeed, man. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, James Cameron. It's his fault.
It all comes back to Jimbo.
Every time. He's always coy in his interviews. Now he's like, well, I told you.
Yeah. Oh, I know. He's like, I've been warning you, dude. He is insufferable. That dude sucks.
You know,
That
like
dude sucks.
I think that there's a couple people who actually have access to a time machine. I think it's James Cameron and,
absolutely.
and Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons.
Yes.
Because all of the tie-ins for the future. I just can't believe, and I cannot believe that they can't think this through about the whole AI thing.
Oh, right.
That they can't see like, oh, eventually this will overtake the company if we give any room
That's
for
what's
this.
crazy, man.
And then we'll lose my $25 million salary per year.
Yes.
I'll lose my $700 million house.
It's so short-sighted. I don't understand it. Like, I understand like the shiny object appeal of it.
Yeah.
But the goal should not be to replace human beings.
No.
You need human beings working.
Right.
So you can do it in a profitable way. Obviously, Mr. $25 million salary.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's crazy, and I worry about how this will all shake out because I if I'm just looking at on paper, it feels like the studios have the leverage, and I hate that. But I really do feel that way.
Fight the power, fight the man. Let's go WGA.
I agree. Okay, so that's the two hot things going on right now. The other thing, man, is like people are laughing this writer's strike off, but you and I know because we lived through the last one, and we're big movie and TV fans during the last one. This is gonna suck.
Yes.
Very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can all laugh and have a good time about like, oh, there's still all these great movies coming out this year and blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, the storm is coming and it's going to suck. Mm-hmm. And when we're all watching American Gladiators for 3 straight months next year, it's going to be terrible.
Or what is it? The Love Island and
oh, God. Bachelor in Paradise.
4000.
Please. No, seriously. It's coming. It's going to be disgusting.
Yeah.
It's going to be so bad. But
Naked and Afraid.
God help us. But yes, on the topic of, yes, there are still good movies coming out this year.
Yes.
We've got Venice, the Venice Clap-a-thon going on, which is Kirk's repping.
My Italia shirt.
The standing ovation numbers are rolling in at a rapid clip.
Yes.
And, it's like 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I haven't seen any 10 or 11 minutes yet.
Oh, I did see a 10-minute.
What was it?
I don't remember who it was for, but one of these. Did you see? I don't know who was the director, but one of these films, the director's like, "What is happening?"
David Fincher.
Yes,
I loved it. It's so on brand. They screened. What's his new movie called?
The Killer.
The Killer with Michael Fassbender. Which, dude, that movie looks so good.
Yeah.
He got a 5-minute standing ovation and sat there looking confused the whole time. He's literally like his mouth is moving. He's like, what is this? And I love it because the Venice Film Festival Clap-a-thon is one of the stupidest things that exists.
It's like, if you hate having happy birthday sung to you, just wait till the Venice Film Awards. We're going to clap you to death.
And you're going to stand there awkwardly.
Yes.
And then like if you're an actor in the movie, you're going to kind of like half-heartedly clap because it's awkward. It's horrible. It's the worst.
You're going to shake hands with the 6 direct people around you, right? And then that's it. And then you're just clapping in clapping limbo. Oh, it's terrible.
And everybody's presumably making eyes at each other, so that the clap Illuminati can determine when enough is enough. And then somebody's like...
I want someone to come in who's like a big time comedian who would have the clout to do it and no one would be alarmed, like Will Ferrell, and come in and say, just like start screaming, "Stop clapping! Stop it!"
Yeah, it's one of the more insane things that happens. I don't even know how this came to be, but like this, we talked about it before. This is the measure of successful movies. So I think like a few films that got some pretty long claps. There was The Killer. Yes. There was Poor Things. Yorgos Lanthimos, the Emma Stone movie with Mark Ruffalo, and The Hitman, which is Richard Linklater, Glenn Powell, and a few others. But anything from Venice that that caught your eye. I think for me, it's Poor Things, which is that movie screams, "I'm gonna love it, you're gonna despise it."
It does.
Is that fair?
I'm absolutely going to hate it.
Kirk is gonna hate that movie.
Director Yorgos Lanthimos. Director of The Favorite,
Yeah.
which was not my favorite. I'll tell you what.
I love it.
I just can't get behind it. It's just so weird. And I'm fine with weird movies. It's just not my style. Not my style.
Here's a movie that you're gonna absolutely love.
Okay.
Ferrari.
Really?
Don't you think?
I could.
Michael Mann.
I do. I do.
Well, you
enjoy
like Heat,
some.
right? Or
I
no?
love Heat. Yeah. I'm interested in.
How do you feel about The Last of the Mohicans?
Oh, I've never seen it.
What?
I know.
Dude, that's Essential Cinema.
I know. Maybe that's what I'm
Judging
watching
you.
for bedtime right
Judging.
now. I'm interested in Finalmente
Oh, yeah.
L'Alba. Maybe something like that. I'm a big fan of Lily James. I think she's fantastic, and
she is.
she's been off her rhythm recently in recent performances.
Yes, and Priscilla.
And
I know you're all in on that.
I'm all in on Priscilla.
Yeah.
Those two have got my eye just because of just the story. I think those are very interesting stories and some pretty powerhouse directors and actors in them. So I'm excited for those two out of them all. But really, I am looking forward to Maestro. That one seems to be maybe at the top of my list. Have they aired it there yet? I don't think they have.
I don't think they have.
Yeah. I really think that is going to sweep there at the festival.
Mm. So you think it'll be a big Oscars player?
I do think it will be.
Interesting.
I do think it will be.
I'm excited. I think it'll be good. There's a lot of good movies coming down the pike still this year. I think it's been kind of a lackluster year for film, but I'm encouraged by the remaining slate.
Yes, we're about to get hit with some very good stuff as long as nothing gets delayed.
Well, Dune 2 is a blow. I mean, we haven't talked about it on the podcast yet because it hasn't happened, but that sucks.
Yeah.
And, that's writer's strike related.
It is.
I think.
Well, because it's writer's strike and SAG-AFTRA, because they, as actors and writers, they cannot be out there promoting the work.
Yeah.
And therefore, they know that if you don't have big stars going out and doing publicity for it,
yeah,
no one's going to see it. No one's going to know about it.
Yeah, that sucks. But shout out to the Marvels, which will now get IMAX screens.
Congratulations.
Nice job, Marvel Studios. You nailed some IMAX screens. But yeah, it sucks that Dune, I mean, that would have been a big contender in a lot of the same categories that I think Oppenheimer will contend in terms of like visual effects, sound mixing, all the sci-fi type awards.
Right.
So kudos to Oppenheimer, I guess, for its future Oscar wins.
For sweeping the Academy Awards.
All the technical award categories will now go to Oppenheimer. Though, I mean, frankly, they might have already, Dune notwithstanding. So
right. So actually it gives Dune some breathing room next year.
Yeah. And I think that was part of it too. I think that Dune possibly was like, well, in a year like this, do we really want to release in the same weekend as a Marvel film? Do we really want to, like, I don't know, maybe they were looking at the board and they just didn't love it.
Right.
So, because you got to remember, Dune, the first Dune, while I think it was viewed by a decent amount of people, it released on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time. And so the box office, we don't really know. We don't have a good proxy for how the box office will perform for that film.
And because that data is hidden from Max.
Yeah, we have no idea how many people actually seen that movie.
Right.
Maybe it did terribly. I don't know. Nobody knows. David Zaslav knows. Nobody else knows. So yeah, that's all I got though. Anything else, Kirk?
That's all I got. This has been a fantastic, fun episode. I'm glad we're back here.
We're back. We're back at least for now until one
the
of our
babies
wives
come.
has a baby. So
It's
stay tuned.
Have you ever seen Father of the Bride Part 2?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah, because Diane Keaton and I forget her name, but she's wonderful. The daughter in the movie, they're both pregnant at the same time.
Yes.
And they go into labor at the same time, and Steve Martin is running down the hall
That's
at
right.
the hospital. That's what it's going to be like.
It's going to be, it's scary hours around here. It feels like at any moment. So bear with us. We're all gonna get through this, but we appreciate your patience. We appreciate you watching, listening, however you're taking in this content. We love that you're here. Please share your thoughts with us. There's so much weird stuff going on right now, and everybody's got opinions, and I would love to hear them. Kirk would love to hear them. We live and breathe this stuff, so be sure to reach out. Until then, of course, we want to give a special thanks to our presenting sponsor, St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings, as well as our executive producer, Ryan Spriggs, his band Rhetoric, that created all of our original music and all of you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Talk to you then.